But you can actually pinpoint location within the islands, a particular island, within the Marianas, and then also the village and locality. A lot of history tied behind that. About some of the documents that I have put together, I say in an unorthodox way because they're not, a lot of them aren't peer-reviewed academia style. It's just something that I felt I had to do. Put it in writing now, and then worry about, people can tell me where I'm wrong. That's fine. I don't mind making mistakes because the project gets stronger, when I learn from those mistakes and we reinforce it. So it started back in 1996, and I took it for granted when I was back home on Guam. What I took for granted was the resources that were right in front of me when I was on island. I had this mindset. I had the Punzalan last name. All I knew is that it was from the Philippines, so I wanted to actually focus on that first, and then be able to go straight, and start with the Chamorros, because the Chamorro side of my lineage, because the resources are there. I took that for granted. But it started with the Punzalan project. And then once I completed, I actually connected our families with the Punzalans in the Philippines. My grandfather came with the Navy as a cook in around 1916. And then married my grandmother, the Anderson, in about a year later, 1917, and just made roots on Guam. Lost contact with his family during the war and after the war, and then it wasn't until 1997 when the consulate family, after I kept pushing my dad, inquiring, they finally connected us with our family in the Philippines. And in the year 2000, we had a grand family reunion with the Punzalans. It's the first time the Punzalans from Guam were able to connect physically with the Punzalans in the Philippines. So by 2003, actually it was 2004, was when I changed the Punzalan project to the Chamorro Roots Genealogy project and established the website domain for it. Gave it its own identity. There we put together a nickname dictionary, because not only are clan names important, but nicknames are important too. And hopefully, like I said, a young scholar will take that bull by the horn and make sense of it. But what I've tried to do is capture how many nicknames do people have. I think for myself, I had like 5 different names that I go by, and it also gave me the hypothesis that names in our ancestors' times were dynamic. It can change from one name to another throughout time, and that's based on the premise, that a lot of Chamorro names, when they name their children, they're based on an event, a trait, a physical trait, a location, something that's tied, to something that happens with them or their family that they can give the person a name to. So we started that in 2014. I had hoped to make it an annual report, but I don't have the bandwidth for that anymore. So anybody wants to take a dive at it, we could put that project back together. So, and then Miguel also mentioned about the family clan names. We did that as well. Took an index and queried people, what are their family nicknames. So we have a spreadsheet, now it's an electronic copy also, that contains those names. And I quickly learned that every name has a story. And it's important whether you realize it or not, but it'll come into play later on if you look for it.
Because we have come into, and different historians have talked about that being part of the sort of the colonial experience for so long, is that you start to think that the big things in life you can't do. Somebody else needs to do them for you, right? But I think more and more we're learning that we all have resources, we all have skills, and we just need to find our ways to work together. And so I really think that the genealogy project you're describing is one of those, even in the way that you were telling your story.
So, we've got to be active players in this. The interest has to be there, or it's just going to fade away, and it's going to become an unknown, and it makes it even harder for you to dig back and research as to its origins.